So hi everyone, today we'll be discussing regarding the concept of brachial plexus. So mainly we'll be concentrating on the branches of the brachial plexus and also the origin, first of all the origin of the brachial plexus, and next the branches of the brachial plexus, as well as finally we'll discuss regarding the clinical aspects of the brachial plexus, right? So first of all, what is exactly brachial plexus, from where it has got originated? So when you take out the section of the spinal cord, suppose this is the section of right. This is the section of spinal cord, and there is central canal, the spinal cord, right. So when you imaginarily divide the spinal cord into two segments, this is the posterior part of the spinal cord and this is the anterior, or we can also say this is the dorsal part of the spinal cord and this is the ventral part of the spinal cord. So the neurons that are present in the dorsal part of the spinal cord are called as the sensory neurons. So the sensory neurons, the dorsal root ganglion or the cell body or the cytone of the sensory neuron is present in the posterior cord here. So this part is called as the dorsal root ganglia. From here, one central nerve as well as one peripheral nerve comes out, right? So in the same way here, this is the dorsal root ganglion. What is exactly meant by ganglion? Ganglion, in the sense, a cluster or a group of cell bodies is called as ganglion. But I have shown here you only one cell body, but in actually there are many cell bodies present over here. Many, in bundles and bundles, some thousands and thousands of cell bodies together is called as a ganglion, right? So these are the dorsal roots, which are also called as this sensory root, and these neurons are called as the sensory neurons. And immediately on the ventral side we find the motor neurons, right? I have drawn only one, but in actually there are many, some bundles and bundles of motor neurons and thousands of bundles of sensory neurons. Even in the same way here, some thousands and thousands of sensory neurons in this way. So all these sensory neurons as well as the motor neurons together, they are combined in one nerve, which is called as the spinal nerve. So this is the spinal nerve. Immediately when they come out of the spinal cord, they enter into this spinal nerve. So one important thing is to remember that every time the dorsal root of the spinal cord contains sensory neurons and the ventral root contain motor neurons, but spinal nerve is a mixed nerve because it has a mixture of dorsal as well as ventral, that is the sensory as well as motor. So from here, some of the sensory neurons go upward and some of the sensory neurons go downward. So in medical terms we call it as a posterior movement, as this is an anterior movement. In the same way, the ventral roots or the motor neurons also go upward and most of them come downward in this way. So a group or a bundle of sensory and motor neurons that are going posteriorly, this is called as a posterior ramus, and a bundle coming anteriorly is called as an anterior ramus. So this posterior ramus passes posteriorly backwards and supply the skin of the back, right? And this anterior ramus passes anteriorly forward and forms plexuses. That is how the brachial plexus, and in the cervical region the cervical plexus, and there is no thoracic plexus, and in the lumbar region we find the lumbar plexus, and next the sacral plexus. So how these plexuses are formed? Plexuses are formed from the anterior rami but not from the posterior rami. So anterior ramus of the spinal cord forms the plexuses. So that is the reason why the brachial plexus, cervical, lumbar and sacral plexus is formed. So we'll see the branches. We have just revised this origin of brachial plexus. It is general and introduction. So we'll go in detail with the branches of brachial plexus, and next we'll go with the clinical terms. So we'll go now with the branches of the brachial plexus. For our simplification purpose, we'll divide the brachial plexus into mainly 4 parts. The brachial plexus that has just arrived from the spinal cord are called as the roots, and next their continuation is called as the trunks, and next their continuation is called as the division, and so on it's called as the cords, right? So first of all we need to know the root value in the sense from which segments of the spinal cord the brachial plexus is exactly arising. So from C5, from C6, from C7, from C8, and finally T1. So from these segments of the spinal cord, not vertebra, these segments of the spinal cord, from these segments of the spinal cord the brachial plexus is arising. So they may ask you the question, what is the root value of the entire brachial plexus? It is C5, C6, C7 as well as C8 and T1. So immediately, as I told you, from the spinal segments, what are the structures that are arising? It is a spinal nerve. So C6 spinal nerve, C7 spinal nerve, C8 as well as T1 spinal nerve. So from the spinal nerves there are two divisions. One is the posterior division that goes backwards, right, in this way, and another one is the anterior division, right? So we'll mainly discuss about the anterior division because anterior division is the part that is forming the plexus. So this is the anterior division, right? So the anterior division of C5 and C6, both of them join together, and the anterior division of C8 and T1, both of them join together, and C7 anterior division is kept alone. So now this anterior division extends forward, right, and next it divides into two parts, here this way. One is called as the posterior part as well as the anterior part. In the same way here, posterior part, anterior part. In the same way the posterior part and the anterior part. So all the posterior parts of this C5 to T1 together, all of them connected together to form posterior cord. I will be labeling the names later. So first just remember that the posterior part, all the posterior parts of C5, C6, C7, C8 as well as the T1, all the posterior parts join together to form the posterior cord. Now we'll look about the anterior parts. So these are the anterior parts. The anterior part of C5, C6, C7, right? This is the anterior part of C5, C6 and this is the anterior part of C7. So both of them together, they form lateral cord, and next C8 and T1 together they form the medial cord. So here this is posterior cord, right, and this is lateral cord and this is medial cord. So as I said, immediately after the origin of this brachial plexus from the spinal segments, just immediately after they got originated, so this part we call it as the roots. So from here till here, these are called as the roots of the spinal cord, brachial plexus. And next we move on to the trunks. So these are the trunks of the spinal cord, 3 trunks, right? This is the lateral trunk, this is the middle trunk and this is the medial trunk, okay? And next, divisions. So these are the divisions of the spinal cord, brachial plexus, right? These are the trunks of the brachial plexus, these are the divisions of the brachial plexus and these are roots of the brachial plexus. And finally we found the cords of the brachial plexus. So this is the entire brachial plexus, and now we will look at about the branches of the brachial plexus. You no need to remember the branches in a diagrammatic fashion, just they may ask you what are the branches of the brachial plexus that are coming from the posterior cord or coming from the lateral cord or coming from the medial cord. Just remember the branches. So I will be giving you a mnemonic for remembering these branches. So now, as I told you, the the chords of the brachial plexus, there are mainly three chords: posterior chord, middle chord, as well as the lateral chord of the brachial plexus. So first of all, in relation with an artery, we need to discuss these chords. So the artery which passes in this manner here, this is called as the axillary artery, which passes in the axilla, right? So this is the axillary artery. This is the axillary artery, right? So the structure of the brachial plexus, that is passing posterior to the axillary artery. I mean, it passes backward of the axillary artery. So from here till here it is continuous, and now I am drawing in a dotted fashion to represent the posterior movement. So this is called as the posterior chord. And the part of the brachial plexus that is passing lateral to the axillary artery, this is called as the lateral chord. And the part of the brachial plexus that is passing medially is called as the medial chord of the brachial plexus. So this is the posterior chord. So that is why the names posterior chord, and this is the lateral chord, and this is medial chord of the brachial plexus. So now we will see the branches of lateral, posterior and the medial chord. So a small mnemonic to remember the branches of the lateral chord are L, M, L. Okay? And medial chord are M. Medial, the first letter is M. So we need to remember it as M4U. Right? And the posterior chord is ulnar. ULNAR. Right? So first we'll look about the lateral chord branches. The lateral chord branches are LML. L stands for lateral pectoral nerve. Lateral pectoral nerve. M stands for musculocutaneous nerve. Musculocutaneous nerve. And another L starts for lateral root of median nerve. L, M and L. Next we'll go with the medial chord, the branch of the medial chord, M4U. M4U in the sense there are 4 M's and 1 U, totally 5 branches. So one is, if here it is lateral pectoral, then here it must be medial pectoral nerve. Okay? And another M, medial nerve of arm. Next, medial nerve of forearm. 1, 2, 3. 3 M's are finished, and final M is, here it is lateral root of median nerve. Then here it must be median root of median nerve. Medial root of median nerve. And next, the last U is the ulnar nerve. Next, the posterior chord. Posterior chord mnemonic is ulnar, ULNAR. So I'll write the posterior chord mnemonics here. ULNAR. U stands for upper subscapularis. Upper subscapularis nerve. And L stands for lower subscapularis nerve. N stands for nerve to latissimus dorsi. Nerve to latissimus dorsi. And A stands for circumflex axillary nerve. And R stands for radial nerve. So these are the branches of the brachial plexus. So the branches from these are the branches from the lateral chord LML, and these are the branches from the medial cord M4U, and these are the branches from the posterior cord, it is ulnar. So now we'll go with the clinical aspects of the brachial plexus. Before explaining the clinical aspects of brachial plexus, I would like to mention two more branches of the brachial plexus. So first of all, as I told you, brachial plexus C5, C6, C7, it arises from C5, C6, C7 as well as T1. So from here, this is the spinal nerve, right? Posterior branches, and these are the anterior branches. Anterior ramus, not branches, anterior ramus. So anterior ramus of C5, C6 join together, and next C7, C8, T1 join together, and C7 remains alone. And here it gives us to posterior division. All the posterior divisions together form posterior cord, and next C5, C6, C7, their anterior divisions together form the lateral cord, and finally this forms the medial cord. So here, as I told you, these are called as the roots of the brachial plexus, trunks, divisions, and next these are the last cords of the brachial plexus. So two more branches which I need to remember you is that roots of the brachial plexus. These roots of the brachial plexus gives two more branches. One are called as the anterior branches and the other is called as the posterior branches. In the same way, trunks of the brachial plexus also gives out two more branches. One is the anterior branches, another one is the posterior branches. But divisions do not give any branches, and next cords gives the branches which we have discussed just before, right? So what are the anterior branches of the roots and what are the posterior branches of the roots? Anterior branches passes anteriorly, posterior branches passes posteriorly. So anteriorly that are passing are, one is nerve of Bell, which we also call it as the nerve to the serratus anterior muscle. Nerve to serratus anterior, right? And next the posterior branches are dorsal scapular nerve. Dorsal scapular nerve. One important thing is that this anterior branch gives out a nerve called as nerve to serratus anterior. This nerve is also named as nerve of Bell, B-E-L-L, Bell. The trunks also gives out two branches, anterior, posterior. Anterior gives out nerve to subclavius muscle, and posterior branch also gives out nerve called as suprascapular nerve, right? So here as we see, trunks gives out two nerves, nerve to subclavius. So this is the nerve to subclavius. This is the first nerve, the nerve to subclavius, right? And this is the next nerve, second nerve to suprascapular nerve, right? So the clinical aspect which I need to discuss here is this, exactly this part, this point, right? This point is called as Erb's point. What is exactly Erb's point? The spinal cord segments or the nerve roots of the spinal cord segments C5 and C6 is called as the Erb's point. So what exactly happens? For suppose if a person is standing under a tree, right? If a person is standing under a tree and if a branch of tree it falls on his shoulder, immediately this nerve gets damaged. For suppose if a person is riding a bike and if he falls down towards his shoulder in this manner, this nerve gets damaged. Whenever this nerve gets damaged, we say it as the Erb's point has got damaged, which finally results in a paralysis called as Erb's paralysis, right? So this point is called as Erb's point, and the resultant paralysis which is given by the C5C6 Erb's point is called as the Erb's paralysis. So what is the clinical feature for how can we diagnose a person has got Erb's paralysis or not? The patient's hand will be adducted towards his body in this way. It will be adducted, and next it will be medially rotated, right? Adducted, and this part of the hand will be medially rotated in this way, and the person walks like this. So that is how we diagnose the Erb's point. And next there is one more important clinical point that is related with C8 and T1 at this point, right? This is called as Klumpke's point. Let me write. Klumpke point. Damage to this point causes Klumpke's paralysis. So how can we diagnose the Klumpke's paralysis? The patient with the Klumpke's paralysis come near the physician in this manner, claw hand, right? So the digits are flexed, and this joint is called as the metacarpophalangeal joint. These are the metacarpals and these are the phalangeals. So the joint between them is called as MCP joint, or also called metacarpophalangeal joints. So there is extension of metacarpophalangeal joints. Flexion of digits, hyperextension of metacarpophalangeal joints. So finally it results in the formation of claw hand. So that is the diagnostic feature of this Klumpke's paralysis. So this is the exact concept of brachial plexus, and the mainly in the exams they will be asking regarding the branches of the brachial plexus that are coming from the cords, and mainly they will be focusing on these 2 points, Erb's and Klumpke's point. So thank you.